Is everybody in? Is everybody in? The show is about to begin.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and that cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concertsthatmadeus.com.
Jonno, you're very welcome to Concerts That Made Us.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Brian. It's cool.
It's great to have you now. I'm looking forward to diving into your music over the next bit. So, on February 22nd, you released your debut EP, Otherside. It's your first as a singer-songwriter. Take us a bit deeper into the album.
It's most people that know me from the South African music scene know me as a drummer. I'm a session drummer, and I've always kind of played guitar. I've actually been playing guitar the same length of time as drums, but never really delved into it, never really got it together. And I pursued drumming pretty intensely through my 20s, then to my 30s, and got involved in the jazz scene. And obviously the music is pretty demanding playing jazz. So I just got immersed by it. And I don't think I touched a guitar for like 15 years from the time I started. And and working as a drummer, obviously, I would, if I had time off, I wouldn't be delving back into other instruments and playing. I guess I've got so many other things I love to do as well. So, music did become work for me a lot of the time. And then during lockdown and COVID and these, everyone knows about that. I kind of felt if there was ever a time, just let me revisit the guitar and start looking at what I can do, because I could do a few little things, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And then that was the journey, and that's where it started. And also for me, songwriting was, I'd written some pretty lame songs like back in the day when I was younger, and nothing really went. I didn't. Nothing really came of them, and so I didn't really trust my songwriting ability. I trusted my arrangement ability. Arranging music. Often in bands, as a session drummer, you'll actually do quite a bit of arranging yourself. Coming up with parts. And so the missing puzzle for me was lyrics. Like, I've never written lyrics, so starting that process was quite daunting. And I'd written one or two things, and listening back to them, because I'd always, if I had an idea, I would record it and then listen back. And I heard some of the lyrics that were coming out, and I was like, this is pretty cool. Like, I could listen to this. That's what always. And my wife she was a DJ for most of her life. That we actually met through the music scene, so I really trust her opinion of things. And I kind of bounced it off her, and she said, this is pretty cool. Like, you can actually write songs. And so it's just I flexed that musical muscle that I'd never actually flexed before. And then after the first two songs, I said, okay, cool, I'm going to do an album. And I had 10 songs and I was ready to go. And then I realized, oh shit, 10 songs, it's a lot. Like, I don't have anyone to bounce this off of. It's just me and my laptop. And to cut a long story short, I got a friend of mine who was in a very similar place. He was keen to start something that he'd always wanted to do, and I had the time and the means. And we jumped into this. We dwindled it down to 5 tracks, and then that's this EP called Otherside. Yeah.
Right. I see. You kind of took an interesting process when you were writing as well. You kind of, didn't you sit there with the guitar and just kind of let the lyrics come to you?
Yes. So there's a few, people that I've had that have been integral parts of my musical journey. And one person who was a big part of it early on was Jim Jones from he calls himself Small Town Jones. He lives in North Devon in the UK, and I spent quite a bit of time there and in my early 20s, and I got a lot out of that time, spending with him. The music, a lot of the music he was writing and playing at that time was very much like this album of mine. It's kind of singer-songwriter, folky stuff. And so I've been kind of bouncing ideas off him from when I started this. I started to kind of bounce ideas off of him, and I said to him that this is the way that I found to get lyrics happening, and he was like, I do a similar thing himself. He kind of just um I sing gobbledygook. So I just, I want to see the rhythm of the lyrics. I want to the phrasing of it for me is almost more important than the actual lyrical content up front for me. And then whatever words kind of drop into my mind, I kind of think, wait, what am I saying here? What is coming out here? I mean, it might be complete gobbledygook, like just random words,
Yeah.
and then and sometimes a word might sound like a word, and then I'll say, oh, that's the word, but why would I say a word? So it's this kind of back and forth kind of, I guess it's quite an esoteric kind of meditational process where we kind of thinking about what could this mean from a backward angle, and from this angle what could it mean, and then obviously once I'd realized, oh, this was what the song could actually be about. I get it. It's almost like it's the third person kind of, and and then bang, the lyrics came, and then I would just, some songs came quickly and some I left for a few days, and then I'd come back to it and sit to the guitar, and then a few more lyrics would drop, and then yeah, it just kind of went like that, so I guess the guitar strumming harmonic idea with the first few changes was the framework, and then I kind of, the lyrics and the phrasing of the lyrics was kind of put on top of that. And then the drums for me was always, it's going to be very simple, like just tone, more about tone, and where the drum beat, like a lot of these songs are guitar up front and then drums kind of join in just to lift the song, but it's not a super rhythmic um endeavor,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And when it came to the album, you had a couple of different people involved. What was it like
Yeah.
trying to pick the right people?
um Budget. No, they are, these are very close friends of mine and people that I know get this side of my musicality. I guess some of my good friend Mark Buchanan, he was the guy that pretty much mixed this album. I think it's his first actual commercial release. I mean, he's had commercial releases before under his name as a guitar player and as a musician, but I think this is his first as a mixing engineer. So, I mean, we were sitting for hours, like mixing like one vocal take, or, like bouncing off mixes, then losing like tons of guitar parts and then scouring through hard drives to find lost material. I mean, I guess a lot of musicians that have produced before can relate to that. So we were in the deep end together, and Mark Buchanan is an incredible musician. I mean, I don't know anyone with ears like that. He can hear. He's not a he's not a trained musician. Like, he didn't go to school and stuff, but he can hear chords and he can hear stuff that's, I mean, he's just, yeah, he's kind of a big part of what made this thing possible, because I had this guy who I really trusted, a little bit older than me. He's been through so many different musical experiences. He was in a very cool hip hop band in the late 90s, early 2000s, Max Normal. Um, and together with his friends, Shauna Tim, who's also our trust, he was also involved in this in some way. He helped us with one of the tracks. These two guys were kind of early on, got the framework going. And then some of the other musicians are just good friends of mine that are just, phone a friend kind of guys. The first one is Guy Buttery. I don't know if you know him. He's a great guitar player from South Africa.
I've heard the name, all right, yeah.
Yeah. he's just a killer guitar player, and we've worked together before, and obviously as me as a drummer. And then I said to him, "Hey, guy, like, what's the story? Would you be interested to just maybe play on one of these tracks?" And he lives quite remote. He lives out in the Midlands in KwaZulu-Natal, which is quite far away from me. So we did this remotely. I sent him some tracks, and within a couple of days, he sent me something, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It's like, what? Just
Yeah.
incredible takes. Um, there was a bit of bleed. He had to like bleed through his headphones onto the track, and he was like, "Oh, should I redo it?" I said, "No, dude, this is like incredible." So that was that first song, Comeback, was him with Ebo and acoustic guitar, and that was just like a breeze for me. And then the other musician was Carl Shepard, who is a musical brother. We've played jazz together for many years. We've toured a lot around the world playing jazz. I'm kind of part of his trio outfit. He's a pianist, and also was just dying to get him involved in some way, but I just didn't know how it worked because he's quite a heavy jazz player. So there's a song on the EP, the last track called "Tell Me." I feature him, and I battled to knuckle him down because he's a busy cat. And he, yeah, it's taken it most probably took about a few months of hit and miss trying to get
Yeah.
through to him, and then I managed to get hold of him, and I went to his place, and I'll never forget it because it's actually a digital piano. It's not a real piano. It's a sampled piano.
Yeah.
Uh, it's not mic'd up piano. So I was in his place, and he did a take on the song, listening to it a few times, but he didn't really. I know he was very busy at that time, so he didn't overthink it, and he played something. It was very kind of quite safe and beautiful, kind of romantic modern classical kind of take. And then I remember looking because I know what he's capable of, and I know what his ears, the way he hears music. And I said to him, "Carl, like just do something that you think could be like, within the range." Like I said, don't go too out there, but just push a little bit."
Yeah.
And oh, okay. And then I remember forget because he's got this like setup at home because he does a lot of movie scoring. So he's got this digital this MIDI keyboard under his desk, and he just yanked it out like, and he just smashed this beautiful like. I mean, it was incredible piano solo right at the end of that track where he just kind of does something a little bit angular, and kind of just the way, for me, the symbolism behind that is to end this song off with this kind of quite sophisticated harmonically, this sophisticated like jazz solo, which kind of tips the hat to that world that I'm actually mostly a part of.
Mm. Yeah.
But then the bulk of the work is this kind of beautiful lyrical, kind of very simplistic kind of stuff. So yeah, those are the two featured artists, and then obviously there's so many other people that my wife did the photography for the cover art, which I think is really beautiful. That is me freezing my balls off in the in the ocean down here in Melkbos. And yeah, Maurice Palega, you might know him from Dirty Skirts. I
Ah.
saw you've interviewed because I played drums on their new EP, Radiant Clouds. I was the drummer
Ah.
on that EP, yeah. So Maurice is the bass player for that band, and I just dig him as a human. And that song, Other Side, is kind of a rocking piece, and I know he's got such killer basses, and he's got that indie skip, that's what he calls it. It's like that kind of it's straight eights, but it's got this like a little bit of an upbeat twang to it. And I just
Mm.
wanted him to kind of lay down the bass in that one. And glad to have him there. And then obviously Mark Buchanan's a killer guitar player. He played on some of them. And so yeah, there's backing vocals from a friend of my wife's who I've also known for years. She teaches music, and I sent her some stuff. She sent me one take back and was like, nailed, beautiful, done.
Yeah.
And so it's been the actual tracking was hard. A lot of the parts myself doing stuff, but with the stuff that I sent away to people to contribute was just seamless. There was never really any
Mm.
any hassles there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you know, it kind of, I know it's folksy, singer-songwritery, but it kind of transcends boundaries or genres as well. Were you
Yeah.
surprised it didn't sound more jazzy, or was it a conscious decision?
Yeah. Um, I definitely, the jazz thing for me is a touchy kind of thing. It's like, I play with so many musicians of the highest level, and when it comes to that, I can play that stuff on drums, but I can't really play it on guitar unless I really kind of have to, like, it wouldn't be natural. I'd have to really like try and kind of figure it out. And the whole idea for this album was like a cathartic kind of just let go. A lot of these songs are down tuned guitar, easy. I'm literally holding two fingers on the fretboard and just wailing away, So it's like it's very simple and just natural songs. Like the melodies I would come up with sometimes just playing guitar, because I don't know if you know, in South Africa now we're enduring a beautiful thing called load shedding, where
Yeah.
we get power cuts. And so during the beginning of that, when it became more intensive like it is now, there would be evenings where we would be sitting in darkness, and the whole neighborhood's blackout, these mass blackouts, and I'd just have the guitar and just be playing and playing, playing, and then these melodies would just naturally come. So it's I think if I'd done something more jazzy, I would have most probably had to kind of go to pen to paper or kind of figure things out. And I'm definitely, I'm highly influenced by bands like Radiohead, and I could name a few others. I love Ben Hard's new stuff as well, kind of where rhythmically it's quite interesting. There's a lot of odd time measures, and I'm into math rock as well, like in some small way, and love the whole post rock thing as well. There's so many beautiful. So I'm into that kind of thing, and I definitely think further down the line I'm going to get into like putting the drums down and getting something rhythmically really interesting, and then trying to find the space for the guitar. And I mean, I think a great tune could be just a melody and a beat. I think we kind of we don't. I think I don't have to go into the harmonic thing as much in the future, maybe. So I'm going to see where that goes.
Right, right. I was actually thinking of asking, have you thought about any live shows to support the EP? Have you even, is it a concept yet?
So I was offered a live slot recently, and I turned it down. I shat myself. I'm kind of not ready for it just yet. I guess as a working drummer, it's kind of all I do. I'm a musician. That's pretty much how I bring the bread in. So um, as a drummer, I'm really busy. So I feel like to get to the guitar, I'm going to have to kind of get there and really get flexible. And obviously, I know where I want the level to be, for the performance. So I've kind of put that on the sideline
Right.
for now. But I definitely want to do something soon. And even if it's like a support act, play 2 or 3 songs and just put it out there. So, and I've got so many cool connections to people that I've played with over the years that are doing concerts, and I could kind of muscle my way in. That's kind of the idea, is to jump on a support act at some point this year. Definitely. Yeah.
Right, right. Interesting one for you now. If you're not, doing loads and loads of gigs, how are you getting the music out there?
Yeah. So it's literally just things, platforms like this, your podcast, great ways to just talk about the music. And just letting it fly online. I've obviously got so many close friends and family that are loving it and sharing and doing the thing. But on a like on a bigger scope level, um, I'm just kind of this was a thing that I didn't want to overthink too much, because I think people can get super pressurized about a release. And oh, what are the numbers? I mean, I know so many musicians that I work with that are sitting with their Spotify stats and like scrolling, feel stressed out, and I've tried to not get too into that space. The initial I guess the heart behind this was, I just want to let this go. I want to do this, and once it's done, I want to let it fall wherever it may. And and then obviously you have to start registering, you have to start doing all the publishing, and you have to, and then the whole world opens up to you, and you realize, wow, this is actually a lot of work. It's a lot of things you need to do. And so I guess for me, it's I'm going to take it as a natural process. I'm not going to get too stressed out, and keep. I mean, I'm enjoying my drumming at the moment. I've just did a short tour in Switzerland and in Germany with a cool band, and there were a lot of cool things that came out of that, and also in my playing, developing, trying to develop as a drummer as well. So this, by no means is this album just a by the by. It's a big thing for me. It's huge, But I'm going to find pockets of time within my schedule and within what's happening in my life, and I'm going to focus on getting it out there, maybe performing. But it's like I said, it's going to be a natural kind of. I'm going to try and make it as stressless as possible. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right. And the podcast is called Concerts That Made Us. So I have to ask you
yeah,
some concerts related questions. First of
for
all,
sure.
as a concert goer, what
Yeah.
concerts have made you?
There's a few that have really like moved me like intensely. I'm obviously growing up or starting out my musical career as a jazz drummer, or being a drummer, then getting into jazz. An album that really influenced me was Miles Davis's Kind of Blue album. I'm sure you know that iconic
Yeah.
album. And the drummer Jimmy Cobb, he actually came to Cape Town with a great pianist named Jerry Allen, and I can't remember what year that was. It was at our International Jazz Festival here in Cape Town, and that wasn't that long ago, but I'm sure it was like 2014-ish or 15 or somewhere around there. And I mean, there have been many others before that as a youngster, but this show just killed me, man. I mean, seeing this old timer, I mean, he's passed now, but seeing him just at that age, like just playing the ride cymbal. I'm sure you know the ride cymbal in
Mm,
jazz is a big part of the beat. It's
yeah.
the high end sort of the ride cymbal, and on that album, the ride cymbal is such a massive part of that sound. It's the sizzling kind of sound. And I was always so, when I first heard that, I'm like, I thought, what is that? Is someone watering the garden, or I just didn't know what it was. You're always trying to pick out things you're hearing, and you're trying to transcribe. And when I
Mm,
heard that, I don't know what that sound is. And then it was this journey towards this beautiful ride sound that Jimmy Cobb had. And then when I saw it live, it just brought me to tears. I was just like, I was crying. I had a beautiful, like, a steady shot camera. I left it there. I left myself. I was ran off stage. It was a complete mess. It's like, anyway, but it was such an incredible experience to see him, and just to experience that real time, seeing someone so far down the line still giving so much to the live performance, and not holding back. Because oftentimes, I mean, musicians just go into autopilot, and just play, and this guy wasn't doing that, and it was so beautiful, and it hit me so hard.
yeah.
That was also just a sign for me as a musician. I would have been in my 30s then, like mid 30s, but must have been about 10 years ago, and it was like a flag post, just going boom. Okay, next, I'm ready for it. I think just to see someone like that, doing it at that age and still giving us, like, music's for me. This is it. I'm on the right road. I'm just gonna keep going. I guess it's these moments, of realization.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Would you like to be still doing it yourself at that age, maybe in your 80s or?
Sure. Oh, for sure. No, this is it for me. Yeah, for damn sure. Yeah, I love it.
Interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
And I know it might be a tricky one now, but when you think of all the gigs you've played over your career, is there one that sticks out above the rest as the highlight?
Um, I mean, there's so many really cool ones, but I'm going to say now, because it just dropped in my mind as you said that, was we played in a jazz trio with Carl Shepard. We played in a, a Buddhist temple
Oh,
just
wow.
outside Tokyo. Yeah. And it was quite interesting. We were in Japan, and we were touring. We were there for quite a while, and we'd seen some beautiful places, and we've been played in some amazing concert halls and things like that. And then we got to this. We actually got to Tokyo right at the end, and obviously we hit the city. It was crazy, and we played in a Buddhist temple there as well. But it wasn't at all like a Buddhist temple. It was kind of it was an interesting place. It was very modern and didn't have that same feeling. But then we ended up at this very old Buddhist temple, and the temple had opened up for these concerts like midweek. It was like this thing that they were doing. It was almost like in some church, in Protestant churches, you have these like youth evenings where like youth can
Yeah.
come and it's not so serious and people wear jeans and stuff, kind of like that, but for a Buddhist temple. So it was really interesting. We set up. I mean, it was the most beautiful setting. It was incredible. But the opening act was like these Buddhist monks with gongs walking around with incense, like ding ding. I mean, it was incredible. Like just walking around, and it was a crowd. I mean, I would have said there was probably about 100 people there, but just on the floor, just sitting down. And then we played this South African jazz music. It was like incredible. It's like, and it was, Japanese crowds are incredibly quiet. You
Mm.
don't hear clapping during songs and things, but once we were done, there was this beautiful warm applause, and we saw people that were weeping, and they were just
Oh
so
my
moved
God.
by the experience. And I was just like, well, where am I? Like, pinch myself. It was just incredible. Just a really cool gig.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely one of the most unusual places I've heard for a concert as well.
Yeah, it's very unusual.
Yeah, yeah. And if you flip it around then, is there a gig that was maybe everything went wrong and how did you overcome it?
I've had a few of those being a drummer. Um, I think I think the one that comes to mind, which is super classic. I mean, there's a few, and when musicians sit around and have a few drinks, we often talk about these experiences. But um, I had one where the entire wedding venue collapsed on the band.
Oh my
We
God.
survived. It was a tent, so it was okay, but it was chaos and getting instruments out. There was a squall. It was crazy, and we had a good laugh about it afterwards. But that was one gig. But the other was one of my first performances as a drummer, as a session drummer in Johannesburg. I actually was there for a short time. I was considering basing myself there. Um, and I got offered this gig with an orchestra and a big band. It was quite a big gig, and I can't remember the conductor. It was his first gig as a conductor, and it was pretty much my first gig as a drummer with that size of ensemble. I played a lot of jazz gigs and smaller combos, and the music was intense. It was all the Brother of the Breath music from old exile jazz repertoire. It's a heavy body of work. And there was a discrepancy with charts and music in the rehearsals, quite a big mess. So it was like, I would say there was probably about 30 people on stage, and I was the drummer, and I was green, and I just remember getting through the first few pieces, about the skin of my teeth, reading, getting lost in the charts, in the music, because I had so many different charts from pianist and guitar, because none of them had drum parts. So, and I'll never forget the one moment where there was this beautiful reprieve where I got through one of the songs, like, thank God, one, or two or three down. Okay, next one. And then I remember having this beautiful sense of relief, like the calm in the middle of the storm. I looked at this conductor, and he looked at me, and he was smiling, and there was this pause. This entire auditorium is just this pause, and he looked at me and nodded, and I looked at him and I nodded, And then I was like, what is he, what? And then it just dawned on me, I need to count the next song in. This
Oh.
is like, this is it. Remember, the panic set in, so it's like fight or flight. So obviously it's like get up off the drums and just run out the back door, or just take a chance and try and just click your sticks together and hope it's, because I didn't know what song it was. I'd gone blank, like completely blank. So it was just, I remember looking down at my sticks and it was like, whoa, poosh, and I just hit them together and I lifted my hand, I just crashed the cymbal and the whole orchestra just came in, boo. And then within like 3 split seconds, the song just downloaded into my head and I just carried on playing and we made it to the end. But it was like the most, I mean, it was that feeling was like
Mm.
being completely weightless. It's like I jumped off a cliff. But we made it through the gig. But that was definitely one of the scariest moments of my life.
I could imagine. Oh my God. And you know, when you think of your career and all the gigs you've played, all the things you've done, how do you keep it fresh and exciting at this stage?
um, I think for me it's gear. You
Right.
know, you can get a nice new piece of gear and it can kind of add a palette to the sound. But this, to be honest, this endeavor of me playing guitar and singing has rejuvenated my. I definitely have another focus now. Like, you know, whenever I feel musically a little bit lost or I'm just going from gig to gig, um, I can definitely just grab the guitar and just keep fleshing out. I've got a bunch of songs now that are ready for getting stuck into again. The next EP is definitely going to be out towards the end of this year. So that's how I kind of keep it fresh. And then obviously, you know, I get messages from so many different people like to play a gig, and and that's the one thing about being a session drummer is you become a bit. Sometimes you become a drummer, a psychologist, a driver, a bouncer, all in one kind of one sentence. You just have to be all these people, you know.
Mm,
And but one thing I love to do with drumming is to take on that artist and just to support them as much as I can, you know. And with that, there's always something new. It's always, I mean, someone will write music and I'll think, someone will say, you know, can you make this? There's a couple of shows. We got 2 rehearsals and a couple of shows. Are you interested? I've been wanting to work with you. Great. I'll say, yeah, that's great. And then I'll do some researching and I'll check the artist out. Oh, that's cool. It looks like it's going to be like a mellow kind of chill jazz thing, maybe a little bit of bossa nova. And then I get there and they're doing like crazy fusion rock music, you know. It's like you missed the mark. And then we're smashing out all this heavy stuff, and I'm like, what's going on, you know? It's never, yeah, it's always, I've always caught by surprise as a musician, especially in Cape Town.
right, right. I get you. And before we dive into the last couple of questions, then, any future plans you'd like to tell us?
So definitely the next EP, I have some, there's actually some songs that I wrote before some of these that have been on this EP, and super excited about some of them. The one was actually almost landed a really nice uh slot in a commercial, which is like obviously as a musician trying to put out music, it's always nice if your song gets picked up and it gets used in some sort of commercial or gets used for something cool where they kind of keep the integrity of the song and they use it in some cool way. And obviously it's a nice payday, but it's also a validation that people are looking at your stuff. So they, one of those songs that almost ended up on a commercial is in this next set. So I'm quite keen. On the person who got hold of me saw it somewhere else on YouTube or somewhere, and so I'm quite keen to like really make sure that that one is solidly put together. Um, and then otherwise, the year is actually quite open. There's a few things happening in the middle of May where this band I've just toured Europe with, this jazz band called Skyjack, also just done an album release. Very cool Swiss South African collaboration band. That's gonna tour, and then there's so many other things coming. But I think for me, the next little bit of tracking and the next little bit of going into this process again is coming soon. Yeah.
Right. Brilliant. Brilliant. Right, the last couple of questions, there are a few random odd ones, but I'm intrigued to see your answers. First off, what are you currently obsessed with?
Golf.
Golf.
I've always been obsessed with golf a little bit, but um, it's a love hate. It was so when I picked up golf again, which was a few years ago, about 10 years ago, after not playing much in my 20s and 30s. I got into it, and then I got super frustrated. Then I went for some lessons, and I got super into it again. And I just the golf swing is this elusive, very intense thing that I'm getting into, and so that's one obsession of
Right.
many.
Right. The next one, if you had to spend 24 hours locked in a room with any musician from history, who would it be?
Shit. Uh, um, wow, that's intense. Um, hmm, I guess it's such a problem because I love so much music. Um, Shit, who would it be? Wonder, because I want to say Jimi Hendrix, but because there's so little I know about Jimi Hendrix. But you know what? I'm gonna just go with Scott Matthews actually, because
Right.
I dig him, and I'd love to pick his brain on songwriting. I think he's a master, and he's one guy I've been over the last sort of 10 years. I've just his every album that comes out, I'm just like, damn, this guy, the lyrics, the melodies. So
Hmm.
yeah, he's definitely. I'm gonna say Scott Matthews.
Good one. Good one. And the final one, what is your go-to album?
Go to album. Um. Uh. I mean, just to be honest, recently I'm gonna say kind of blue. I'm just gonna say Miles Davis kind of blue. Just there's no feeling like that feeling you get when that first song starts to play. I'm gonna say that one. Even though
Brilliant.
there's some, I love the War on Drugs as well. The Living Proof, that song for me is it just when I listen to that, to me that's a perfect song, you know.
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with Cold Blue.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like it. Must be that one. So listen, Jono, it's been an absolute blast now. Thanks a million.
Thanks so much, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Welcome to the podcast, concerts that made us, interviews and stories, tales from the bus. We love taking you back to when it all went down. The greatest live shows and the cheering crowd sound. It's concerts that made us, concerts that made us.com.